Welcome to day 7. We've made it through an entire week of our 20-day program, 21-day program, and thank you for that. Today's mantra is create. So we want to think about all the mantras that we've had up until now, love, gratitude, forgiveness, faith, wisdom, and now creating. I know I'm missing one in there. Let me see if I can find it real quickly. We want to keep all of them in our mind. So, forgot about breathing. Can't forget about that, right? So, we want to have all of these things in there because this has led us to the moment where we can even think about creating. So once we get there, once we are accountable for our action, our faith is based on a smart system. We're no longer bickering and quibbling over small matters that are oftentimes diversionary tactics or paralysis by overanalysis. So we've got all of this firing in our corner now. And we've forgiven, and we're going to do right actions so that we don't have to keep trying to forgive ourselves, right? And now we're ready to create. The interesting thing when we think about it is that humans create magnificent things together. It's very hard to create great things by yourself. Like, when we talked about the community gardens at Compton, they found a vacant lot and they asked the owner, and he was like, yeah, this is something I could get behind. And they pay for him, they pay for the lot in food. The master gardener was a former surgeon, and he really wanted to help his local community. Preventive medicine, now that he's retired from, trying to fix things that are a real problem. They also feel like that can empower their community because not only in a food desert, your health is compromised in many ways. It's not just compromised because it's nutrition deficient. Oftentimes there's high rates of obesity and diabetes as well. So, this is a powerful thing that they do, and it wasn't that expensive. So a lot of times we give ourselves the crutch that we don't have the time or we don't have the money. And that was not the crutch for people that are doing great things. So let me show you a few projects that are incredible, and also they tie into this another theme that we're looking at today, which is trees. So the Green Belt movement was started by a Nobel Peace Prize winning woman named Wangari Maathai. And what she discovered in Kenya was that there was a lot of industrialized farming that was coming in. It was destroying the habitat. That meant that the soil could not retain water, and the women were having to walk farther and farther and farther to get their water. There was no shade trees. The soil was infertile. So it was a real problem. And Wangari's solution was to plant trees. And that helps to retain the water, both through the shade, through the roots. It can also provide food, shelter, firewood, all kinds of things that trees could provide for the folks that were living in that rural area of Kenya, right? And what she had to convince, which is something that we're coming up in the developed world too, is people think, oh, well, I can't solve the problem by myself. Someone more important has to solve the problem for me. They have more money and they have more wisdom, they have more resources, all of this. And so she had to go in and say, look, you're having to walk, you spend your entire day walking and just to bring back enough water and food for your family. If we redevelop this area back to where it was with trees and fertile soil, it will hold the water for us. We won't have to walk as far. We can start growing our own food, etc. Right? And of course, she ended up winning a Nobel Peace Prize for it. There's a lot more to the story than just that. She has a memoir, there's a website, it's an ongoing movement. Also, there's a great green wall that's going to go across Africa to try to help. Africa, sadly, has been suffering because its temperature on that continent is already above 1.5 degrees centigrade, higher than it was pre-industrial. There are some areas that are increasing in temperature faster, and Africa is one of them. And experiencing droughts, loss of habitat, which means loss of animal diversity. Biodiversity has got this crazy dance that Mother Nature created that humans don't completely understand, but when we try to kill one thing, it ripples throughout all things. So it's really important for us to understand that. And part of what we should be thinking about creating in our communities, we talked yesterday about gardens and composting, but we absolutely should be thinking about tree planting. As many people say, including Kathleen Rogers, who's the president of the Earth Day Network, the largest environmental organization in the world, she says, look, we have to plant trees. It won't solve the problem completely, but it at least gives us a shot. So we've got to do it. Now, the key here is planting trees that are appropriate for your area, right? So you want to really know what the native trees are. Some trees are invasive species. Some trees drink too much water if you live in an arid climate. So you really want to consult the experts on this. And you also might want to think about having some trees that yield fruit, right? That can be very helpful as well, because people want to protect something that gives them good fruit. So another project I was going to tell you about was Costa Rica, and they used a different model. Now, Costa Rica was suffering greatly. Their rainforests were being chopped down, and they wanted to reverse the trend. So the government started paying people to restore the rainforests, and that helped them to develop ecotourism, which actually increased their economy. So whenever people say that green, is going to be bad for the economy, Costa Rica is a good example of why that's not the case, because sustainability creates jobs too. So this was something where the government came together. They created money and funding and jobs and economic growth by restoring their own rainforests. They just recently won the Earthshot Prize for let's see if we can find it here. I'm not positive that we can, what their Earthshot Prize was for protecting and restoring. So again, create the solution in your community with trees and community gardens and school gardens that are appropriate for your area. We've even seen in desert areas like Las Vegas, how organizations are going in and they're pulling out the grass, which is not appropriate for a desert and costs a lot of money for the school and uses up water resources the area really doesn't have to waste. And they put in school gardens, and these are more fun for the kids to learn in, provide funding for the school because the school actually sells the produce to the parents. And also the kids have better school lunches. So let's start thinking of how you can create the solutions that are needed in your neighborhood. And part of that is going to be carbon sequestration. Are you going to create carbon sequestration by planting trees, by installing community gardens or school gardens? But I want you to think of yourself as a creator. And that project, again, I know you might say, well, my Lord, you have me doing all of these things, right? But once you do it, it's done. And it might be less time. It will absolutely be less money than shopping. And again, you're in contact with nature, which is going to be a way that we can start valuing our home planet better. It's hard to treasure something that you don't know well, right? And if you're in a city and you don't have very much contact with nature, then we've got to start creating that. Thank you again. Day 7, create, and that means plant some trees with other folks and plant some gardens. Okay, there's a lot more tips in the book about other ways that you can think of it, because trees are traditionally a peace sign as well. So we want to do things that include people rather than exclude people. Make sure that you're not using divisive language if you're doing a call to action for people to join you. And I'll see you on day 8 tomorrow. Okay, thanks again.